No. Alright, we're gonna do Route 66 again because we're gonna keep it
Consistent,
Yep, that's the word.
just like your pronunciation.
um, Same reason as last time if you weren't here. This map, I generally feel probably the map with like the most acceptable comps that can be ran on it. Um, like if like even if not everything is optimal here, at least in some matchups, almost everything is playable here. So that's generally why I do this map. What we're gonna be doing is checking out a comp, which is this time quad DPS and triple DPS. Oh wait, why do I have Epic Pin on? It's like I'm doing a VOD review. But which in this case is quad DPS, triple DPS. Looking at what comps it's played against, why it's played against them, what the game plan is, what like the general positioning is, what comps it's not played against, and why. Going through all that. This isn't necessarily like, oh yeah, you position here, 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 and on this map, and then on the next map you go here, here, and here. Like it's not gonna be that strict. Rather, like it's more about like the general idea of the comp, and then you take it from there to bring it to your teams or whatever. So with this comp, there's the two iterations. There's quad, there's triple. We'll start off with quad, which is usually so. If you see something wrong with this, well, there's not like a very specific like this is the quad DPS version,
There's
but
a lot
there's
of
yeah.
variation.
I usually prefer the Hammond version over the Orisa version, so I'm gonna. Actually, I don't think I've updated Stat Banana in a long time.
Apparently not, because I don't think
So this monkey is actually Hammond.
it's
Oops.
him.
Actually, if Ash sees play 2, this is gonna be bad. Um, Mercy. And then what's the last DPS that's usually ran? What,
Widow?
Hanzo or
Widow or
Widow?
Hanzo?
Yeah. Um, we'll do Widow. Yeah. So this is like the general quad DPS. Keep in mind that this is actually him, and unlucky should have probably updated ahead of time. So comp stats ran against obviously is goats. The reasoning is this comp is very much a pocket strat. This comp is very much not a oh, this team is a goats team, so let's go quad DPS. It's very much okay, this team is a goats team, so we know they're on goats. We know they're on this certain phase, which is defense, and we know we're on this map where we can take advantage of it. So let's try this for a couple pushes. It's never really like the game plan is okay, these two maps we're gonna go quad DPS, and then the next map we're gonna go goats. It's never really that simple. Like it's like Sebastian, where you're not planning the entire map to run that, and you're not planning it to run it on every map that you possibly could run it on. Reasons why you're running this, why it's a pocket strat, is every single source of damage that is supposed to be set up here is supposed to be a source of damage that can get in, do damage, and not really be threatened by goats itself because of its low range. Sombra is here because she can, like, even though she's not like a ranged character necessarily, she can like avoid that damage with translocator and invisibility, and then she can get those hacks off, which sets up the rest of her team. Hammond will be rolling in, trying to displace the enemies to set up shots for his Pharmacy and his Widow, which sometimes I've seen Widow swapped her for like Hanzo, for Ashe, and then that way Mercy can go between Ashe and Pharah, just whatever. Although Mercy can go through fire too, although Ashe gets more value from the Mercy pocket because of Dynamite. So the general game plan is displacement from the monkey, or not monkey, from the Hammond, which is why Hammond is alone. He doesn't necessarily need another tank to help him with displacement, and his goal isn't taking damage or controlling space. That's not his goal here. It's not, yeah, I'm going to go in and do tank things and play this corner and stop the enemy team from doing what they want. Yeah, it's I'm going to go and slam their backline and then get the fuck out and hope my Pharah or my Widow got a kill from it. And I'm just going to keep on doing that over and over and over and over and over. So having a diva there doesn't necessarily help him, because having a diva isn't going to help his survivability. It's just going to end up putting that diva in danger. So starting off, how it's positioned, which is why another reason why this is a pocket strat where you can't just run this on every map that the enemy team is running goats. Well, there's two reasons why it's a pocket strat. But the first one is positioning. You have to be able to play a map where you can position very freely at a bunch of, like, if you're at one angle, right? Like just one angle, like or if you're only attacking from predominantly one angle, like this, then all that Goats is going to do is they're just going to set up and they're going to hold a shield. Oh, they're going to hold a shield right here and matrix some of that damage and bubble some of that damage. So you have to be able to play, or the map has to be able to present you multiple angles from attack, and then they also have to be able to keep it where you're safe while doing it. So like you can't just be on a whole bunch of different low ground angles, because all that's going to do is make you a free target for Goats. They're going to blitz onto you and then you're dead and the comp doesn't work. So like how that McCree comp, how it also wanted to be playing on high grounds at all times, so that like if attention is ever drawn to you, it's a good thing because they're not going to be able to do anything to you. This comp wants to be doing the same thing where like Soldier's on high ground. He doesn't want to be a target that's like a really free kill. Obviously Farah's on high ground because she's in the air. Widow's peeking from another angle from high ground. Sombra's getting hack and then she's going to that high ground to get spray damage out. Like there's never, like even Hammond isn't going to be fighting on the low ground. He's just going to be disrupting and then getting out. So well, we've already gone over the game plan. So there's not a lot of maps that this is run on. The reason being that's a pocket strat, and the other reason why it's a pocket strat, other than the maps themselves with like the angles and like even if you manage to win first point with this comp, you're immediately switching. You're never ever playing this comp throughout the whole map. Like once you've won first point, first push, whatever, you're swapping immediately. Because if the enemy team is smart, all they'll do is just swap to dive, and then this comp is actually hard throwing. This is solo queue comp at that point. So like here you take point and then you're immediately running to spawn. Like your goal here is to force them off of Goats. Okay, we got them onto dive, and now that they're on dive, we're going Goats ourselves. So if you lose multiple times, or you're not able to force them off of Goats, or you even win a point but then they stay Goats and then they're able to counter wipe you, then the comp isn't working. So this is entirely okay. We play this point, we win it fast, and then we're swapping. So the reason why that doesn't always work is because if you lose first fight, if the enemy team survives for a long time, if they survive your first wave of ults and whatever, if you're swapping late, now you're on the exact same comp that the enemy team is on, but now the enemy team has ult advantage. So like I'm saying this as an example because this was a game that I watched, but CC, the team that I coached, Chicken Contendies, was playing against Underwater Squad, I do believe, and we were playing Goats like around here, and all that we had to do was out sustain the enemy team's DPS. So like Farah's over here trying to get picks, Widow's looking for sniper shots, but like if they're not able to just get a kill there and we're just out sustaining, then their entire win condition is going to be, okay, we ult here. And then if we survive that ult, they have no win condition whatsoever. That's when they're like, okay, we've tried to poke at them, that didn't work because they bunkered like they're supposed to. They didn't split up and get disrupted by our Hammond. Okay, so then we tried to use our ults, that didn't work, they survived those. Okay, well now we're swapping to Goats to try and beat that, but now there's only 1 minute on the clock and we don't have ults. So that's the reason why it's never ever going to be a mainstream strat. We're like, yeah, well we'll just push card and have our DPS get picks, because it's never going to be that simple. And this is very specific towards Goats. If you play this comp against anything other than Goats, it doesn't work. So that's like the general rundown there. You can have Soldier playing on that high ground, you know, getting damage out, and then he'll also be one to transition on and off of carts, because he can roll their, he can run back, you know, run forward back quickly, but then also Hammond doesn't want to be on cart. He wants to be displacing constantly. So a lot of people see that Soldier as kind of like, okay, well, he's kind of cart whoring, and he's not really doing much in the normal DPS because he's Soldier, and then what they do is they pull a Zen instead, and that's when they get triple DPS. The exact same comp, but with a Zen. And we got Monkey for Hammond. We are missing Widow. So this is definitely the better version, and the one that I see more often. You can still have the advantage of high DPS. Everyone knows Zen has the high. In fact, he probably outnumbers Soldier a lot of the time. But then you also get the utility of Discord, where like if Hammond knocks someone up and then they get discorded, and then there's Farah shots and Sombra shots and Widow shots, they're gonna melt even faster. So that's even more towards what the comp wants to be doing. You also get trance, which if you're having to trance in the first place with triple DPS, you've lost that fight. Like, from a serious note, trancing isn't going to save you much there, but it's still better than visor into shield. At least that way you can save a Hammond or something. And then he's also able to play that cart whore just as well. So you play it the same way. You're getting everyone on your high ground at different angles. You're not like playing the exact same place, or you're not like all playing the same angle. Rather, you get a hack off, or you get a knock up from Hammond. You get a hack off, right? Widow's getting shots, Far's getting shots, Zin's getting the Discord. Same thing. You swap off after. You don't keep on forcing this comp for a long time. If you force this comp for a long time, then that's how you end up getting massively disadvantaged with ults and whatnot. There's not like a massive difference between the two. Every character that is in the comp is chosen because they either enable the enemy team to get displaced, or they displace them themselves, or they're a DPS character that can completely avoid Goats' reach. So, same, Widow isn't going to be in Goats' range. Like, she's not going to be able to single-handedly get kills through their shield, but that's where the Hammond and the Sombra come in. So it's a very well theory-crafted comp. It's not the typical, hey, we're in comp, let's go Torbjorn, Bastion, Symmetra, Widow, then we're quad DPS. It's not that. It's not that simple. It wasn't a random thrown-together idea. But yeah, general layout, or the general like positioning, it's always going to be like as many different high ground angles as possible from your DPS. Like, you never want to be attacking from the same. I mean, you're not even playing this on the second point. Like, there's no reason to even look at second point. If you're playing this on the second point, you're playing this incorrectly. This is very much a one and done composition. I want to actually look at other maps as well. Sometimes you see this on maps like, oh my gosh, do I not have Busan? Oh my gosh, I don't have Busan. All right, what's a close second to Busan? What's basically Busan? I don't have a lot of maps. Control maps are the same general premise, although it's kind of debatable if they're better between King of the Hill or like escort maps. Because escort maps, the advantage is they're linear. Oh gosh. They're linear, so you don't have to worry about like, okay, well, they'll just rotate away from us. Like, eventually their back is going to be to a wall. And that's kind of the advantage of it. Okay, we can keep pushing them. They're not just going to be able to play Ring Around the Rosie with us the whole time. The disadvantage is you're not going to be able to rotate around super freely either, and you have less like angles of attack. Like this map, whatever, this point, whatever it's called. Like, you can play here, 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 here. Like, you can rotate all the way around. Like, you can have your Sombra play here and then teleport here. Like, you can the advantage is at the same time where one advantage is it's linear, the other advantage is, well, it's non-linear. Like, it's kind of weird that both are an advantage. It depends on how you're planning to play it. And also how organized the enemy team is. So if they're able to rotate around your sight lines and you're not able to plan for that, it's not going to work well on Koth. The advantage is if they're not rotating well, or if you're planning for it well, then you're going to have an even easier time where like they're never ever going to contest a DPS up here on Goats. Like, maybe they'll send a D.Va or something at best. That's the most that's ever going to come out of it. So, like, you can position around here, like, okay, we're shooting down, and now, oh, well, they've gone to this side of the point, well, we've got people here and here, too, and, okay, well, they try and run around, well, we've still got our original sightlines. So, there's equal advantages there, although in the end, mirror matching Goats a lot of the time just comes out better. Like, the Goats v Goats matchup is a skill matchup. Quad DPS most of the time is a crutch for... It's a crutch. It's either for teams that are just straight up worse at Goats, and they know they're worse at Goats, and they know they're not just going to win that Goats matchup, so they try and run it to force teams off of Goats. Or it's by teams that already know they're way better, and they're like they're just playing the comp just for the sake of playing the comp. Like, okay, well, worst case scenario, we force Goats and we beat this team anyways. Back to Route 66. if this will load. The reason why I say it's a crutch is because completely and entirely in the game plan, it is, okay, we're playing this, we beat them with this, and then when they're off goats, we go goats. Because we're not good enough to beat their goats, but we're good enough to beat their dive with goats. So that's the game plan the entire time. Like, okay, we got them off goats, now we go goats. And then if they swap back to goats, now we've got the ult advantage. So the biggest issue that I see with teams running the comp is they try and force it for way too long, where they've lost the fight multiple times. They're greatly down ult advantage now. They're not able to get those ults out. They've just wasted 4 minutes of time, and then they play to swap it. And then at that point, you've already lost completely. Like you're not capping in a minute when you're down ult advantage. Or the other issue is forcing it on way too many maps where like they forget that it's a pocket strat. They think, okay, well it's like goats. Well, this team is a goats team. Well, we'll be a quad DPS team and we'll just beat them every time they go goats. And it doesn't work like that. It works on a very limited amount of maps, and people try to force it on way too many, and they forget it's a pocket strat. Like, oh, it's like the Sim Bastion. Well, Sim Bastion's good against goats on this one point of this one map for the first push, so we'll play it every single map, and that just doesn't work. So I rambled for a long time. I wanted to get the general overview of what's good against what's not. Kind of get my rant out on teams playing it way too much on way too many maps. So questions. Yes, no, maybe so. Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Alpha, were you just talking?
Yeah.
I definitely could not hear literally anyone.
Yeah, you had us muted the whole time.
No, I think my thing was just bugged because I hadn't muted anyone.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, because there were multiple times I tried to say something, and you clearly could not actually hear me.
Well, you know, I got told not to have a straight monologue, and here I am, literally unable to hear anyone. Good times, good times. So yeah, any questions?
I actually wanted to bring up when you were talking about Zenyatta's position in triple DPS. Would it just like, in general, be better to save your Transcendence for when you swap over to that Goats phase? Like,
if you are planning to swap to goats and you like whether or not you did it successfully or not, if you're planning to swap to goats and you are actually going to swap to goats, because a lot of teams will plan for it and then they just never do it, then yes, absolutely. Like Trance,
it's the only one that it has in common with Goats.
yeah, like in triple DPS, you're like Trance isn't a fight winner there. Like if you get grabbed, well, you're only getting like 1 or 2 people tops getting grabbed. So like, and most of the time you won't be able to reach them in time. So that's not like game winning. If you're trancing like proactively, you're going to be saving pretty much Hammond only and no one else. So there's not really like a, well, you know, we could save trans, but I mean this fight, if we use it, well, like that's not there in triple DPS. So 100% you save that. If unless it's like, okay, if we trance right now we win because we're up 2, then whatever. But like if you have any ability to save it, you definitely save it. Especially since swapping into goats, you're gonna be at an ult disadvantage. So if the enemy team is already like building grab, like if you weren't able to force them off, if they have grab, that trance is gonna be super important. Anything else?
So let me see. There was something I wanted to bring up, but I might have just forgotten it. Oh, yeah. So for the Sombra or the Sombra in this comp, is there anything you specifically want to hack over anything else, like, or is it just general target priority stuff?
2 biggest targets are always Rhine and Diva. Reason being, Diva is absolutely your biggest shutdown for your Pharah. Shutting down their Diva sets up your Pharah super hard. Like, okay, now your damage boosted Pharah gets to go in and do a ton of damage. She doesn't have to worry about a Pharah or a Diva flying in her face with missiles and defense matrix. Either her or hacking Rhine because it does kind
So
of
they
the
don't
same.
have the shield.
Yeah,
So.
it kind of does the same thing where, okay, well, now they don't have the shield to block all the damage. Now your Widow and your Pharah are getting shots. It's kind of between, do you want your Widow getting shots? Okay, well, then hack Ryan. Do you want your Pharah getting shots? Okay, well, then hack D.Va. Like, Lucio's never a priority there. His healing isn't, like, big enough to make it where, like, okay, if we shut down his healing, then we'll be able to get 2 picks. Like, it's not...
You're just getting the burst damage.
Yeah, his focus, or he is definitely not the focus there. Same with like Brig or something. Zarya's not really either, because your plan isn't really ever to go through and just roll over Ryan. It's just to get damage in through that like entire comp. So hacking Zarya there, hacking Zarya is only ever useful to go onto Ryan aggressively, and you're not going onto Ryan aggressively like up close, so that bubble isn't like important anyways. So definitely, usually like always, if there's you're setting up like an ult plan or something, there's someone on the enemy team specifically, then they're always going to be a target, but generally it's D.Va and Ryan, especially since hacking D.Va sets up Pharah barrage as well.
I can't really think of any other specific questions I have.
Did anyone else have any questions?
Was this recorded?
Yes,
Did
it
you turn on your recording?
absolutely positively was.
Okay, thank God.
That's
I
I
hope it doesn't
remember
pick
that.
me awkwardly realizing that you can't hear me talk. I hope it doesn't pick that up.
Yeah, every single one of these recordings have been absolutely beyond scuffed. The one where I talked about VOD reviews, I missed like the first like 5 minutes of the recording. Second one, I don't even remember what did we do in the last one. There was absolutely something scuffed, and I can't remember what. And then this one now, you all were muted for a long time, so I'm keeping up the reputation. There's a precedent that was set, and I have to follow it.
But now you have to top it next time.
Okay, next time I just won't even record the video.
Yeah, next time you just don't record.
So yeah, that's the general rundown. If like the enemy team ever swaps, you instantly swap. Your entire goal with this comp is not, okay, well, we win first fight and then we cap point. Like, capping point isn't even your goal with this comp. Your goal is force the enemy team onto another comp. If they are seasoned and like experienced, they'll purposely not swap to another comp. They'll force that goat's fight. If they're not, then you just immediately swap. Like, if you cap first, you immediately swap. If they swap comps, you immediately swap. If you've lost like 2 pushes, you just immediately swap. So there's a lot of times, or a lot of reasons, to where you don't force this comp for a long time. And if you force this comp for a long time, that's how you end up losing maps most of the time. Or just forcing it on bad maps.
Did just remember another question. So, with this specifically, with the positioning, you talked a lot about how to play it on offense. Is it played differently on defense, on like escort maps? Or is it mostly the same concepts?
So, along with that pocket strat, the same way where it's played only against certain comps and on certain maps, oh god, it's also played only on certain sides. So like on defense, you are you are so heavily at a disadvantage, because there's no win condition there of like, oh well, they swapped to dive, so now we'll go goats. Because if they swap to dive, you don't have the time to swap. Now you've just lost, so you've given up point. So that's why like anytime you see this on defense,
creative way to throw.
Yeah, very much so. Sometimes you'll see in Orisa instead of Hammond. That's more on offense, because you don't necessarily see this comp on defense. But like, if you ever see this comp on defense, your immediate win condition is walk back to spawn, go dive. Because it's not going to be like, okay, well, what if they go goats now? If they go goats, you've already completely capped point. Like, there's no way for them to get wiped, swap to goats, and then come and recontest. That's not going to happen. And in the same way, it's kind of easier to turtle, because then all you have to do is play point, and they have to come to you eventually. Like, there's no like, well, they can just keep on hounding you down from all these angles, and you don't have anywhere to go because you have to defend. It's now they're on offense, you have to come to them. They'll just turtle down, and then when someone drops, they'll just hard focus that person who dropped, and then like they'll just blitz you. So very much in the vein of it being a pocket strat, you very much don't run it on defense. If you run it on defense, I mean, you might have fun if you like losing point immediately. That's
Are they bad? You can get
Yeah.
away with
That's about the extent of it being ran on defense. Is that all that we got?
Uh, yep.
All right, then we'll end this here. General breakdown: you run it on goats, force them to swap a comp or after you cap point, and then you swap. If they don't swap, you don't cap point, and you fail after multiple pushes, and now they've got ult economy, you immediately swap. You don't keep on forcing that fight. Like, there's not, well, maybe we'll get out ults and then we'll ult even better this time. It's you're a little too optimistic there. Your first two barrages got eaten. Your third one's probably gonna get eaten too. You just go goats at that point. It relies super heavily on setting up your teammates. Hammond is very much entirely there to set up his DPS. Not so to control space, whatever. It's entirely you discombobulate the enemy team so that your DPS can get picks. Your Sombra is there to help the Hammond, and also help your Pharah and your Widow. If your Pharah is ever looking for an ult, D.Va either needs to be demeched or hacked every single time, always. There's like no excuse for her not to be. If so, then there's a major coordination issue. You're not like controlling space with this comp, which is why you can't really play this on defense. Because you don't have the resources to control space on this comp. If you're controlling space with any character on this comp,
it's all devoted to the DPS.
Yeah, you just immediately get rolled. So this comp, 4 DPS or 3 DPS, you very much rely on those DPS to do anything. Pocket strat, don't force this comp on every map, don't force this comp on every point, don't force this comp against every comp, don't force this comp on every side. Very much, very specific situations, and even then, it's not always the best comp to be running. I'm no point in breaking down like second or third points because you're never playing this comp on a second or third point. Unless, like, the only time where you're playing this comp on a second or third point is where you're hard rolling a team that's just objectively below you and you have no reason to swap. So yeah, that's the general premise. I don't have much else to say. If we have any questions, speak now or forever hold your peace.
For such like a sort of niche pocket pick, do you think it's even worth like devoting time to learning?
Personally, I don't. I know there's some teams where like they just have their DPS players are just objectively way greater DPS players than they are in their characters and goats, and then that kind of becomes their crutch of, okay, well, we have an amazing hit scan and an amazing Pharah, so like we could play goats, but we know our goats isn't going to be as good as these teams, so we'll try and force quad DPS as much as we can. Those teams usually don't end up getting as far, just because like if you're ever at a point where there's a lot of GOATS teams where if it comes down to it, they can play DPS comps, and they usually have like not necessarily pocket in the same way as like quad or triple DPS pocket comps, but they have a comp in their pocket where if they have to bring it out, they can bring it out. Like even if it's not going to be as good as like some other teams, at least both are playable for them, and they're usually strong on GOATS. If you're strong on DPS or on quad DPS, you're like only strong quad DPS. Like 2-2-2 isn't gonna start outpacing GOATS usually. So unless like that has to be your crutch, I wouldn't recommend committing a lot of time to it. Like there might be sometimes we're like, okay, well, we've got a free block today, we'll try quad DPS, see how it goes. But I'm not going to be like, okay, well, for this block and the Thursday block, we're going to be running quad DPS so we can get practice. I wouldn't commit that much time to it because it's not on the level of GOATS. It's very much a pocket strat for a reason. It's not like, well, if we get good enough with this comp, we'll roll all these GOATS teams. Like, good GOATS teams are still going to beat quad DPS. So it's, like, definitely a crutch. It's not like a super viable, well, on these 3 out of 5 maps, we'll play it. It's, okay, well, they're playing GOATS. We're not able to match them on GOATS. We'll go this and hope it works. So I wouldn't commit a lot of time or resources to it. Some teams have to because it's all they can do. They know they're not going to win those GOATS matchups. If you're at all able to avoid that, you definitely try to avoid it.
Makes sense.
All right. Is that all we got?
Yep.
All right. Ending it now.